Hello everyone, this is Pino Trogo from San Francisco State University. This is the Introduction to Drawing for Designers class. And earlier today we constructed a triangle, a square, and an hexagon. And now we're going to construct a pentagon using a straight edge and a compass. Okay. So I'm going to show how to take down the paper for this exercise again. And that would be Bristol paper. Before I do that, let me just go over again what we did earlier today. So earlier today we drew first a triangle, then a square, and then an hexagon, all on the same base segment, which was 3 inches wide. Okay, we also constructed a border around the drawing, which is 1/2 inch all around, and then we built a title block, which is 3/4 inch from the title block, from the border to the thickness of the title block. And then we checked it, using this technique of drawing 3 little markings on each shape and then rotating those markings and see if the markings still fit after the rotation. We did that with all 3 shapes. We did it also with the hexagon, because we discussed that even though the length of the lines may be the same, the angles may be different. So this is a good way to check, and we're going to check it again for the pentagon that we're going to construct. Okay, and I'm going to actually kind of go over the steps using a piece of tracing paper, so that we kind of not memorize, but at least know what we have to do. So this construction is a little bit more elaborate than the ones before, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to construct, and I'm not going to repeat this for this drawing. Just looked at the other video earlier, but this would be our title block, which is 3/4 inch, and it would be 1/2 inch from the edge of the paper. Okay. And then on top of that, we're going to do another line that's 1 inch away from the title block, which is where we're putting our information for the drawing, right? We're still going to do 3 inches. So we're going to draw, a line, and then we're going to mark off 3 inches centered, left to right. Okay. Then the first thing we need to do, again, it's a little bit more complex. We need to draw a line that's perpendicular to, let's call it point A and point B on the base there. So we need to draw a line that goes up from point A. And to do that, we could use a triangles, right? But it's actually better if we use a compass, so that we stick to just using a compass. So in order to do a line, this was the system that we created earlier. Sorry. If we have a horizontal line and you pick a spot, in order to draw a line that goes up vertically 90 degrees, right? Which we would double check. Let's say if you had a protractor, which would be 90 degrees from 0 here to 90. To do that, we can take a compass, draw a circle like this, any size really. So we get these 2 spots. And then from there, we draw 2 more circles, maybe 2 bigger ones. And we get a spot there. And that's how we get the vertical, okay? So so in other words, here it would be something like, maybe I take a center here, I make a circle. It doesn't matter how big. I take the 2 spots. And then with the compass, I draw again with another arbitrary measurement, right? And this is arbitrary, as long as I point in the same 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and I get that spot. And with that, we get a perfect normal or perpendicular. So then we take the base, which again we're calling AB, and we project that up, right, like that. Okay, that gives us C, which is the same length. This is going to be at 3 inches from the bottom. Okay, so with the compass, we do that. And once we get that spot C, now we need to take, let's see, we can measure this. We could also divide it. How could we divide it? We could divide the segment, again, if we didn't have markings on a ruler, we could do, for example, if that's 3 inches, we could take again our compass and we could draw markings like this. And then we would, in other words, repeat the process that we did here for the top. We would repeat it at the bottom, and then that line would split this line exactly. So we might just do that. But once we find it, why don't we just do it? So let's say we take the same distance. So we do this, we do that. And now, of course, I'm actually out of the paper, so that's not so good. That's too much. I'll take a little shorter. 1, 2, and then join this line would give us this middle point. We're going to call that M. Okay. So we have the base, which is AB. We have the middle point, which is M. We have the C point on the vertical that we built over A. Okay. And now we don't actually need to draw this line from C to M. Okay. But it helps to visualize it. Now with that, we're gonna take the compass and we're gonna bring that C point all the way down to our long horizontal. Okay, so if I go like this, like this, okay, I'm gonna bring that all the way down here. Of course, I would be pivoting here, okay, like this. And we get a D point. And with that D point, I have now from A to D. That's a very long measurement. Hopefully your compass is long enough. Let's see how big it is. It's almost 5 inches. Yeah, almost 5 inches. Then with that measurement, I now point in A and B to get the very top of the pentagon. So I take A, D, and I point first in B. I do this right. Yeah. And then I point in A, and I get the top. I'm going to call that E, okay? Once I have the top and I have the 2 at the bottom here, to find the other 2 on the sides, I just use the same radius, which again is 3 inches. I extend this one. I do the same here. Yeah, there's very several ways, but I'm gonna now just do it symmetrically, okay? And then from here, again with the same AB dimension, which is the side of the triangle, I do this. I just cross there and cross here. And that will be our 2 sides, or 2 corners rather, F and G. And once I find all of those, I just connect them, okay? So we're gonna do this all with tools. And then we're gonna check with that system of tracing paper to see if it's correct, okay? I realized in the previous video, I talked about sharpening the lead, which again should be 2H because it's sharper and crisper and harder. But for the drawing purposes, I'm using HB, which unfortunately, I need to sharpen it more often because it's softer. This is a gadget that if you got it, it's expensive. I think it's $10, $15. But it would be, it's meant for this tool, which is a 2mm graphite lead. Again, there's no lead in graphite. And you have to get a little bit used to how to use it. And the reason I use these leads and this mechanical pencil as opposed to the one that you might be more familiar with, which is this kind that goes click, 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 and I'm sure everybody uses for your homework and all that in other classes, very convenient, but they tend to break too often. And also the point is never really, really sharp. I tried to show that earlier using a loop here, which was actually pretty cool if you missed the other video, which shows you that even though at first it appears that those points are very sharp, you can get a sharper point with my system, the one on the left, okay? And I can even make it sharper by doing this, by rotating the pencil. And now it becomes a real weapon. So we're talking about 1/20, 250th of an inch. There we go, okay. Anyway, yeah, you probably won't have this, again, because it costs money and you probably don't need it for anything else. So if you're going to use instead sandpaper, you could get just a piece of fine sandpaper, like 220 would be a good grit, I guess is the term. And you can use that to just slowly sharpen your lead like this. And this is also used to sharpen the point, the lead on your compass. Remember, if you watch the other video, this is what we did. It's lost a little bit of its sharpness now. It has to be in line, or it has to be at an angle, not pointy, but rather like a scalpel, like a chisel, like a skater blade. So now I'm going to sharpen that too. And I do that not by wobbling it like this, and also not by holding it too high or too low, okay? Of course, it makes a mess. So it helps to have a piece of cloth, not your handkerchief, which I'm using. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this handy, which is a previous drawing that I made, so that we can refer to it, okay? And let's do it. So again, I'm gonna need the compass, and quickly I'm going to, oh, right, we have to tape the paper down in the corner. Instead of using masking tape, which is pretty good, painter's tape, you can use a fancier thing called drafting dots, which are like these little stickers, which have the advantage that because they're round, they don't get caught by the tools as much. Okay, so I'm gonna splurge now and use 4 stickers for my drawing. And while I do this, again, if you have 8.5 by 11 paper, that's okay. Ideally, it should be 9 by 12. It should be Bristol paper, not regular paper, because it's better paper for drafting. So I will not redraw the title block and the border, okay? I'm just not going to redraw this now, so the video will be shorter. But I need to know where this line is, which is again 1 inch above the 3/4 inch of the title block, above the 1/2 inch of the border. So quickly I'm going to just mark that. And I'm just gonna mark once. I'm gonna mark 1/2 inch, 3/4 above that, and then 1 inch above that. And even if it's not perfectly centered top to bottom, the pentagon, because it's a funky shape, who knows how tall is it going to be once we draw it, it doesn't matter. So let's see if I find my triangle. Well, I'm just doing this so that I have a reference up at the top there in case I go too high. Usually, again, light lines, and then once you're sure about them, you go darker, okay? And I'm rotating the pencil. That way the lead doesn't get dull super fast, or at least it gets dull evenly. Oops. Now I'm just gonna do a couple of lines. I messed up there for my type. Yeah, once in a while you might need your eraser. And by the way, this is not in the recommended, well, it is in the recommended, it's not in the required tools somewhere. Can't find it now. I had a thing called an eraser shield. Which now I can't find, so it doesn't matter. It's used to just erase parts and protect others. Okay, so once again, that would be where I put, the drawing information, neat print writing. I think it's a little high. Let's see how tall is the final pentagon. It's 4.5. So 4.5. No, actually it's good. It will be centered. It will be a little lower, but it's okay. So I want to get the center here. And I just measured off the paper, which is 12, so 6. Now I know I'm not supposed to use triangles, right? So yeah, so I'm not gonna use them. I'm just gonna make a little marking because I like to see my markings clearly. And we said the side is gonna be 3 inches, right? The base. So let's mark 3 inches, 1.5 on each side. Okay, and again, 2 little dots like these are hard to see. So I always recommend, instead of just doing a little dot, even if it is on a line, instead of just a little dot, just make a nice crossing. That way it's really clear where you have to refer to. So just like that. And construction lines are great. Don't worry about erasing those. Leave them in because they're nice. Ideally, they're lighter, right? Okay. So that's 3 inches. So now let's start. The first step is to get this vertical from A. Let's write the letters too so that we keep track. And again, this is the step. So I hope you can see it. If I have a spot here and I need to draw a vertical line, what I do is I make a circle, arbitrary, then I point here and I make 2 other circles. And it doesn't matter how big they are actually, but I get this line there. Right, and I would repeat here. Well, actually, I already have the spot, so I don't need to repeat it there because I already have that spot, and that's how I get that line. So let's do it. I point in A with an arbitrary measurement. Again, to hit it right, don't just throw it, right? Or don't just try to do that because it's hard. Use both hands, get a line perfectly. Once you're happy with it, just put it down. And now in this case, we don't need to measure because it's arbitrary. So with any, well, let's make a circle about, I don't know, something like that. Really, all I want is to just mark 2 spots to the left and to the right, which are going to be at the same distance, right, from the center. That's really my main. So now that I have those, I take another arbitrary measurement and I point on those. Now, not to don't get confused with that middle point, okay? So get those, and now the bigger it is, the more precise it is, right? So I make an arc there. Now I point, ouch. I point on the left side, and I do that. And now that should be perfectly vertically plumb with this spot. I'm going to make a light line. Now I could check with my triangle, or maybe I could measure with my protractor to see if it's really 90 degrees, and it's pretty good, right? 90 degrees. Also, I could take my triangle and check it, and of course that's cheating, right? Because we're not supposed to have a triangle. We're on a desert island, and the only thing we have is a straight edge, and probably wouldn't even have markings, but and not triangles. So, but let's just double check. And somehow, wait, it wasn't definitely right with that line. Let me see if it's right with this line, because I'm going a little fast. Okay, it's good. All right, so let's go back to our sketch. Now that we have done that line, we need to bring B over to it to get C. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. I point in A. I take a measurement. Again, once again, if you miss, I mean, obviously now it's definitely missed, but sometimes it's a little hard to see. Okay, just keep trying until you hit it right. And the best way to figure it out is to really run a circle around on top. And if it looks like it's right on it, where are we? Yeah, that's good. So I just bring that over. And I said earlier that when you use your compass, you want to drag the compass. You don't want to push it. You want to like pretend you're like raking leaves or sweeping the floor with a regular broom, not with one of those big pushy ones. Okay, so that's now, we just brought this spot over to C right there. I'm going to mark that. And this was the midpoint, right, which we measured, but let's do a quick fun thing, pretending that that midpoint is not there. If we were to find it, we could do this trick again with an arbitrary aperture of the compass by pointing on A and B above and also below. Does this still show? Yes. Now I'm invading the title block, but that's okay. And now these two spots would give me a line that splits that other line perfectly in half. Let's see how good I was. Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, all that work just to get the fact that this is in the middle. That's okay. That's why we have invented, I guess, markings. But in case you don't have markings on your ruler, if it's just a stick. So M to C, we don't need to draw the line, but let's just draw it just because it's convenient. We need to now bring this all the way down to the horizontal, which I realize it's a little short here. So I'm going to make that longer. Yeah. Okay. So once again, what I need to do now is from M, I need to bring this all the way down to get D. And that would be, yes, M to C. So again, use both hands, you know, lots of control with both hands, get it just right. And then at that point, you hold it here so that you don't affect the aperture, because this could move if you hold it here. Okay, so don't hold it there, just to get it right. Just try, and if you're off, try it again until you're on. And the way to know is to actually draw. Then bring that down. Okay, so from M to C, bringing it all the way down to get, what did you say? It was called D. Okay. Now that we have found that, now that we have found D, this is going to be our measurement, our new measurement, AD, to get the top corner there by taking that measurement from A to D. Now again, I just try and I just make sure I hit it right. Okay, that's pretty good. And I can already do the top I'm gonna quickly, oops. I'm gonna quickly erase this because I don't really need that anymore and I might get confused. This, by the way, is the eraser you need to get, the Staedtler Mars plastic eraser. Okay, so A to D rather. I'm gonna make these markings. You shouldn't do them on your drawing because otherwise it gets a little messy. So that spot I bring up and I repeat the same distance but pointing in B, right? So one's in A and one in B with the same AD distance. Okay, that's now the very top of my pentagon, and that's E. And we'll see if it's correct. Now that I have A, B, and E, I need to still get F and G, right? So F and G, now I'm just gonna work with the length of my edge, the edge of my, or the side rather, of my pentagon, because that's all I needed from this point on. So let's measure it again. A to B. And I can do a couple of things. I can do an arc on both sides here. That's basically a continuation of the one before. Now on B, so that's the opposite. Okay, I'm just going to show you what I just did. I just did those two arcs, okay, from B and from A. And now I point in E at the very top, okay, and now with the same arc without changing anything, I get my two side corners, middle side corners or midway. Okay, so these are the spots. Again, don't do these markings I'm making on my drawings just for you to see. So if I did it correctly, now all these spots are the same. And you can see that, you know, anywhere here, I could still get the right length. And if this point was lower, you would still get a pentagon, right? But it might be like this. And if you had that, would the sides still be all the same length? Well, they're not now, but let's assume they're all the same. It's still a pentagon, but it's not regular because the angles wouldn't be the same, right? This would be a bigger angle than that. So for it to be regular, it has to be both sides as well as angles or the same. So now that I've got my spots, I'm going to connect them. Again, to be more elegant, you can make the lines light first and also cross them because it's prettier that way. And, oh yeah, what are we calling these spots? We're calling them F and G. So this would be F and this would be G. Again, you don't need to mark them and you don't need to mark dimensions either. Just this is just for the video. Now I could be bold and I could darken the lines even before I check it, or I could just be more cautious and test it. And in fact, why don't I do that? So I take a piece of tracing paper. And as I said before, tracing paper is like, it's really, I don't know if it's the bread or the butter, but it's one of the two. You can really have one without the other. I'm not sure what the other is, probably a pencil. But it's great. It's fantastic for a bunch of things. So now that I'm just going to mark my spots. And if I want to make sure I see them, maybe I do that. But don't make them too big. Otherwise, then it doesn't give you a good... Okay, so now I rotate this guy right? So these are 5 spots, which ideally are perfectly equidistant from each other, right? So if I turn it now, let's see if I still hit it right. And it's pretty good, but not perfect. Okay, so I'm a little disappointed. It's a little bit off there, a little bit off. It's close enough, I would say, for you all. You know, if you can make it perfect, fantastic. If you're very close, it's okay. But the main thing is that you understand that this is a true check now. Somewhere along the line, perhaps because I'm using a very soft pencil, but instead you'll be using 2H, which is more precise. You know, something is a little off. Okay. And again, to show you how it could have been, you know, different. Let's see, how could I show that? Let's see it. I need yet another piece of tracing paper. Pretend that I was really off, right? Let's assume I had gotten my, you know, my base there. And let's assume I had gotten my top, but maybe for some reason it was a little off. So let's assume that maybe it was like there, you know, a little bit below the, you know, the correct one. Let's assume it was there. So here what could have happened, which is that you could have made your lines still all the same length by doing this process, right? Wait, something is moving. Okay. So I would have had those 2 arcs. I would have the base and the top there. And now if I point on that top that was the wrong one, the one that was too low, I would have gotten maybe 2 spots there and there. Okay. And so what that means is that these lines now are in fact all the same length. But the pentagon is going to be more squat, because it's kind of like flexing. Okay. So now if I were to check this with my earlier, still we need to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to make squares so I can distinguish them. Okay. If I turned that now, it would have been pretty obvious right away that something was off, right? You can see things are quite, this is much taller this way. Okay. So again, you know, you might have a pentagon that's like that, but it's not regular. So, I mean, instead of doing these 5 dots, I could actually have redrawn it and then moved around. So, you know, we could do that, but it's a lot of work that doesn't really, it's not really necessary. But if you wanted to visualize it more easily, you could have done that, right? And double checked it that way. So let's see if perhaps now that I actually drew it fully, it might look a little more precise, but I doubt it. So yeah, try once, and you kind of want to know maybe that's up, right? So let's turn it. Yeah, it's a little bit off. It's just a tiny bit off. Okay. So maybe my other video, my older video is more precise. Anyway, the goal is to get it correctly, to get it precisely, and this is a way to check it. All right. Okay. This is the older one. All right, everybody. Well, that's the pentagon, and the next drawing will be the clothespin, and then the one after that will be the tape dispenser. Okay,